Correct. And we tend to connect the two of those.
We do. But when I walk into the room and I see that the room is pristine clean, and yes, it's still ancient, it's got 1960s tile floor and wind whistling through the patio doors. But,
yes.
But then it's got a brand new state-of-the-art bed, and there's a dichotomy there between the old and the new.
There is. I think I had a very limited exposure to that. A friend of mine was still in the diagnosis stage, and so I went with her to the hospital. And the elevator itself, we could only go up one person at a time. That's how small it was, and you had to stand sideways. And I didn't think I could get my arm up to push what floor I needed to go to.
That sounds quite familiar.
Yes, I'm sure it does. And then, I found myself, there was no official check-in procedure. There was no, things I'm used to and take for granted in the U.S. And I found my mind connecting the doctor's quality to possibly what I had just walked through. And that was not at all accurate.
No, it's not. Italy's medicine is just as modern and cutting edge as what we have in the States.
Yeah.
Their facilities, their bureaucracy, their administration is typical of this region.
Yes. And the training, so I was going to say, I walked through some medical issues a few months ago, nothing like what you're walking through. But I found myself very anxious and wanting to clarify and verify and check the subject and check my doctor on the situation. And I realized about myself, I need to feel safe in the doctor's hands. I can't imagine how you felt with this.
I have to train medical professionals who
yes.
treat me to the type of care that I want.
Yes.
But there's a cultural difference. The Italians traditionally, historically, don't question their doctors like we do.
No.
They do what they're told. The doctor administers medicine to them. They don't ask the questions. And for me, while I'm laying in this bed for 9 days during this chemotherapy cycle, every time they come in with a syringe to shoot something into my IV bag, I'm like, what's that?
Yes. What's it do? What do I need to expect?
And each one of the nurses and doctors that did that for me had to get used to the fact that it's part of your therapy is not a sufficient answer.
No, it is not.
What is that? You're putting that into my vein. I want to know what it is and what it does.
If they knew. If they didn't know, they needed to find out.
Exactly. I like answers.
And deserve them.
With my previous treatment here, like I said, I have 2 coronary artery stents.
Mm-hmm.
There were times that I got angry with them. I'm like, I will not be left alone in this room not knowing what's going on.
Well done.
You need to talk to me. Tell me what you're doing. This is my body we're talking about. I'm going to understand, or you're not going to touch me.
Yes. Yeah. I found that very much, the culture here. Have you been in the Middle East before, Ike? I can't remember.
Only briefly. I've done a couple of short TDYs to Bahrain.
Okay. So you're familiar with Bahrain. It's changed quite a bit, but you know the general idea that it is absolutely a pretty open place, especially for the
Sure.
Middle East, but it still has the feel and some of the cultural limitations of, a woman doesn't usually come alone to the medical facilities. They're with
Right.
father, husband, brother, and they speak for them. It's just how it's done. It's not necessarily required. It's just how it's done. And I found that myself. I don't usually feel that in general living here, but I found that in the hospital situation that I had to repeat myself many times. I had to, and not necessarily with the Bahrain doctor. I saw several. There was one that was an Indian doctor, one that was an Egyptian doctor, a female Egyptian doctor. But I found I had to repeat myself many times, and I had to ask the hard questions, and that in some situations, the doctor was okay with just doing a Band-Aid. And I'm like, I am perimenopausal and I'm losing blood. I should not be losing blood. Can we find the reason? So some of that stuff and my frustration level with that, and for me and my safety, I would call back and get an appointment with my Denton doctor just for validation. It just made me feel safer, So it was quite an interesting experience, and I love that you have lived in Naples for so long that this was your comfort level. You knew what to say, you knew how to say it, and you knew that you could demand what you needed for your health.
If I had to go through this with the language barrier and somebody had only been here for a year or two, it would have been terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying.
It's scary enough as it is. But
yes.
That would have been devastating to not be able to communicate with the doctors.
And did you find that maybe there was a respect level, just in general, not just through this, in general there's a respect level at the fact that you do know their language fluently?
There is. It's always a surprise to them.
Yes.
After meeting me, they see me. I obviously don't look like an Italian.
No.
I'm a big American cowboy.
You're an Oklahoman.
It always surprises them when they find out how well I speak not only the Italian language, but even the Neapolitan dialect.
That, along with I think research has shown that the deeper voice also commands more attention and respect.
People tend to respond when I speak, yeah.
It's nice. I could do a whole show with you on that part. So what has... That served me quite well in the military, because I found out quickly that I could walk into a room and start barking orders, and people who outranked me would jump to do what they were told. Use your power for good, right? That's awesome. I love it. I think I'm going to deepen my voice is deepening as I get older, and with the allergies of Bahrain as well. So maybe it'll somehow work for me. So what are some things that you have found that, you and Trina are in your zen. You guys just do what you do and it just works. It's so natural now, especially at this point. But was there anything in particular that she did, or didn't do that was very helpful to you as you walked through this? As both of you walked through this?
She has found, especially over the years, now that we've been married for 20 years, we've been together on and off for 30 plus.
Mm-hmm.
She has the perfect balance of how much to nag me and how much to let me go.
Oh, that's a nice combination. I'm going to have her do a class. Oh. Like what?
She doesn't nag.
She doesn't repeat herself.
But she will nudge. And she's careful not to do it too often or too enthusiastically.
Loudly.
She knows trigger phrases to avoid. And she does, not just with me, but she knows that you're going to automatically get psychological pushback if you start saying you need to.
Yeah.
She would sooner say, if I were you, I would. Have you thought about, and she leaves it to me rather than throwing that, you need to blah, blah, blah. She a lot of little tricks like that just are good social interaction.
Well, and semantics matter.
They do.
I think it's the difference between showing respect for the individual's ability to choose for themselves, but also, hey, I'm married to you, I love you, and this affects me too, type stuff.
Exactly. No, and so she has made plenty of suggestions. She has, in her way, what is nagging in our relationship. Mm-hmm. She's nagged as she's supposed to help me not ignore things or do what I'm supposed to.
Sure. Yeah, that's beautiful.
She has been incredibly supportive. It helps that she's calm about things like I am. It would have been much more difficult for me if she were all freaked out about this.
Well, it would. You take your cue from her in so many ways, and she takes hers from you.
She's done her own research on the situation in addition to what I've done and what I've shared with her. Mm-hmm. She shares with me the things that she finds. If I haven't mentioned something and she stumbles across it, she'll go, "Oh, have you seen this?" She's been very supportive, very helpful. During the middle portion of it, when I was in my worst physical condition because the chemo has just totally torn my body down.
Something else I want to ask you about too. Yeah.
Yeah, she's stepped up with household chores and whatnot to do the things that I traditionally help with.
Yes.
And she's picked up that extra burden. Until just this last couple of weeks, she has chauffeured me everywhere I need to go, driven me to my appointments and back and forth to work on the few days that I've gone in. And it's only been in the last few weeks that I've been driving myself again.
Does it feel good to drive again?
Oh, it's wonderful.
The little things, huh?
It's been tremendous.
Oh, man. So what has it been like for you physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you name it, whatever you want to share with having gone through everything? Because it's been over a year now.
It has. And I think probably the physical was the driving force behind the emotional and the spiritual.
Sure.
Because starting out, the pain in my throat continued to get worse and worse and worse until I couldn't eat or drink.
Oh, my goodness.
The doctors at the American hospital prescribed me viscous lidocaine so that I could sip that and numb my throat to get soft foods down. And I was on a pretty much liquid diet for a couple of months.
You dropped a lot of weight.
Yeah, almost 40 pounds.
Wow. Not the way to do it.
I was a big guy to begin with. I'm a foodie. I love to cook. I love to eat.
Yes, you enjoy the process for sure.
I totally missed my food, and it got to the point that about 2 months into it, I put a ribeye steak and potatoes into the blender.
Just to have it.
And made a steak and potatoes shake just because I needed those flavors.
Yes.
I can't have any creamed vegetables and protein drinks.
Not to mention the need for mastication is real.
And then, in addition to the weight loss, once I actually started on the chemo, it's just pretty devastating to your body. It weakens you. It trashes your immune system. So in addition to the weight loss, then I got the poison hammer. And so I have been physically incapable of doing a lot of the things that I love to do. I'm just now starting to rebuild the strength to walk properly.
Wow.
2 months ago, we decided to just give this a try. So on a Saturday, we harnessed up the dog and walked out the front gate and walked to the top of my street and back. It was like a whole 300-yard round trip. The next day, I could barely get out of my chair.
What does that do to you? I mean, it's so much reality. Like, these are things that you don't know until you experience it.
Correct. It's an exaggerated version of what I'm experiencing just with increasing age. You don't know you can't do that until you try to do it.
Yes, and it's a reality.
Like, oh, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah, it's a reality check. And even the denial that's inherent in that. Wow.
Yesterday I had a busy work